I hit Diego 20 minutes a day. 20 minutes a day I hit him. So his body understands impact. These fighters are thinking they're never going to get fucking hit. And when they do, it gets them emotional, gets them all these other things. They start feeling like it's a failure versus that's what's supposed to happen in here, crazy. Calm down. And if you actually master that skill, the fear and anxiety that's making you rush or hesitate won't be there. It really will be blended out. And the ability to understand when to exhale and when to breathe, to escape and to move in, will give you enough oxygen in your brain to make a coherent decision, not a just reactive decision. Because sometimes Dustin's a perfect example of this. Dustin has a beautiful pause positioning in his strikes to just see how the other guy's reacting to know where to place the next strikes. But there's a subtleness where if you're rushing a blind combination because the guy's just holding pads there and just lets you do it, you're just hoping it makes contact. You can't make those micro adjustments like Dustin's doing. You just can't. That comes from being able to breathe in that moment. And you know as well as I know, one breath behind, you start falling behind on each one of those exchanges. And after the second one, the third one, you start feeling desperate. You start making bad decisions. And now you're putting yourself in this space where you didn't need to. Now it's who's faster, who's stronger. All your game plan goes out the door because you don't want the judge to see this direction. You don't want to see any of that. And that's where fighters are hurting themselves a lot. And the coaches are not helping in a lot of ways because they want them to win the round in that fashion. The old way that Diego was getting credit for fighting with just heart. Just go out there. If you just fight that way, you can't lose. Well, I'm telling you right now, 10 years later with brain damage, you can. And Gagey and all those wars, trust me, it'll be a thing. You can see the wars that Tony Ferguson's gone through now. You can see the effects of these things. And speaking of CTE studies, the buildup of these traumas come after 10 years. You get knocked out. The full amount of understanding what happened in that knockout does not come out for 10 years. So these kids today are being knocked out.
Right and left.
Right and left. I mean, that's why their careers are not going to last because they're getting knocked out 4 times in 5 years. Now, you're cutting so much weight that you're being knocked out. I'm dealing with a 39-year-old. He's only been finished 4 times. And one of them's, like a fake fight. Come on. To a special needs kid. Like, this is be real here. These finishes on a guy that's 39 versus these young guys are getting finished like that. One little tap and they're going down. Why? No, I'm being real though, man. You got to see this. And this is why the feeder system's got to be ready there with more guys because they're not lasting. And they're not lasting because they're all action and their fundamentals aren't all there. The guy that fought Woodley last night, his fundamentals were clean as shit. His guard was so good, like it was good. That was one of the better ones that I've seen in a minute. But yeah, he's a terror, man. He's a ringer. You're going to see him just float up, you know what I mean, in a second. As I talk shit to Sean Shelby and explained the ranking system and who they allow to touch gold, it's who they allow. It's the season of who they put in play. And how do we know this, Swick? It's not really a sport if it's not real competition with a real fucking bracket. And if it doesn't have a real bracket and you can't actually show me who's fighting who, like, it's not real. Just like USADA, I had to call out USADA. USADA's not real. You want to watch my fighter's dick piss into a cup, but you don't want to show me video of the testing. 1, 2, you ain't showing me the lottery of how you're picking these names. So all of it's bullshit. All of it. Systematically. Then on top of it, we're in Jordan and 3 weeks. You didn't send anybody to test because you ain't got nobody to test in the Middle East. So let's just keep that real. Then on top of it, you're not telling me the names of the companies you're subcontracting to do the testing in Russia, Brazil. Come on, man. Let's just keep that real. So you're not dealing with companies that are above board. You bought Jeff Novinsky to act like you're official. It's just not real, man. It's just not real. And how could it be real if the guys that look obvious don't get tested? Then on top of it, if it was real, do blood across the board. Blood and hair across the board. Okay. So then we'll talk about medical. I talk to medical. I say, hey, what are the requirements of the brain CT scan? When do you require a fighter mandatorily by the UFC has to get it? Only when you're KO'd or TKO'd. Not when you take an illegal knee to the head. Somehow that slips through the cracks. Come on, man. So this is the bullshit. Just the same as you got 3 judges that don't know the sport. Just the same as you got how many refs. All you have is holes to manipulate the show, to sway the direction, to make sure the narrative plays out as close to the written shit that it was. Because when it goes sideways, then we got to hate the guy that flipped the rig. Well, isn't it interesting that it's pandemic? Global situation. First time in history, the whole world is put on one thing, right? And somehow UFC is able to function 6 months ahead of time. But just like Trump, he had the Arabs build it. That's interesting. And do you think that the Arabs got a good deal out of that with UFC Arabia on the backdrop? That's it. That's all they got out of this deal. Okay. Did it seem like a lot of tourism came out to fight Highland? They didn't make no money on that deal, okay? That's just exposure to the Middle East and affiliation to the West. All right. So they got screwed on that deal. But let's get real. Right after this comes the bet line on IG. So now all of a sudden, you got ESPN and Disney putting up advertising of Wonder Woman and, Burns and Usman. And this is on a dual ad on Facebook, brother. So this is Disney now, titillation and violence. Boom. Okay? At the same time, we have endorsement of degenerate global activity of betting. You don't need Vegas anymore. Oh, so how many people during a pandemic spent their money given to them by the government to try to make a little more? I just want you to wrap your head on all this while we're watching videos of people saying they're going to make $1 million bet, yet you didn't see the $1 million. That's called pushing the bet line, bro, and swaying the angle to flop the flip. I'm going to tell you right now, ain't no way Dana's putting $1 million on fucking Askren when he hates him and he tried to destroy him from, you know what I mean? So the reality is the money's on Logan. And the flip is just to get everybody to bet. That's it. Get it straight, Mike. And this is what's happening is we got a new generation of wannabe masculinity thinking they can end up on top by making money off of the guy bleeding on the screen. So when they initially lobbied for no UFC, they said it was human cockfighting. The difference is when they do cockfighting in Thailand or the Philippines, we eat them. They don't go to waste. Now you're going to deal with, because you're dealing with this generation now. You got second, third, we're about rolling on the third generation. You're going to be walking in fucking Albertsons, man, and you're going to run into one of these guys. And you don't know. You don't know what kind of day they had. And you bump shoulders. You don't know what might happen. There's a whole lot of these people that are unsatisfied in life. Women with new scars on their face that people are like, what happened to you? Oh, I was a fighter. It's a whole new culture happening where these people don't have any mental health. They don't have any way to assimilate back into society where they were the freak show.